Hello again and welcome to the Tobago House of Assembly's Division of Education, Innovation and Energy's e-learning program. I am your facilitator for English CSEC, English A, and my name is Kimarie Richardson Thomas. Today we're going to be looking at expository writing, and we look at a lesson that has been prepared by Cherise Taylor. This aspect of expository writing will focus on the formal letter. Let's begin. Today's objectives: it is hoped that at the end of this session, students would be able to define and explain different forms of expository writing, explain the components of a formal letter, respond to questions based on a formal letter, and construct a formal letter based on a prompt. So, exactly what is expository writing? Expository writing is a form of writing that is used when we want to convey factual information. This is opposed to creative writing, such as fiction or when we're writing stories or poems. The language of expository writing is one of learning and understanding the world around us. It is not just for an academic settings, as it's present anytime there is information to be conveyed. So whenever we want to try to relay information or share information, provide information, especially in a written form, we are talking about using expository writing. Additionally, it can take the form of an academic paper, an article for a newspaper, a report for a business, formal letters, or even a book-length non-fiction presentation. Organizational structures that you can find in expository writing will include the following. Expository writing can be found when we're looking at writing that involves the description or definition of something, because it's factual and it's not meant to do anything other than inform. When we look at a process or sequence, information detailing the process or steps involved in doing something is expository writing, because again, it's aimed at providing information. When we're doing a comparison and contrast, you're looking at two or more things and you want to see similarities and differences. The purpose again is to give you information about these two things in terms of what are their similarities and what are their differences. Cause and effect is another example of expository writing that we can look at. Cause and effect, along with problem and solution, as well as classification. These are all examples of writing that would involve providing information, and they're all geared towards edifying the reader so that at the end of it, they're able to have more information about what it is they were reading about. Now, as we move on, we want to look specifically at our formal letter. Now, we need to understand that there are different types of letters, but for the purposes of our CSEC examination in particular, students are required to understand the format and structures of the formal letter. This is the kind of letter that you may find yourselves engaging with or engaging in a lot more, especially after you leave school. And at the end of this, you'd understand why. So a formal letter is one that is written in a formal and ceremonious language. It follows a certain stipulated format. This type of letter is written for official purposes to authorities, dignitaries, colleagues, seniors, and it's not to personal contacts, friends, or family. The letters that we use for our friends and family, and if we highlight it here, when we talk about our personal contacts, friends or family, we're talking here now about the letters that we would use for friendly reasons. These are the informal letters. Personal contacts, friends and families. When we write to them, this is the informal type of correspondence. What we're focusing on today would be those letters that are written for official purposes. Official purposes. And I want to stress on this part because one of the things that I'm observing in the age of social media, we've lost a lot of our official writing, so that we've become very informal, and sometimes we forget the audience that we're writing for, who we're writing this to, and there can be the error of using informal tones, informal language, and informal structures when you are required to use formal purposes. So we have to make sure that we adhere to specific conventions for our formal letter. A number of conventions must be adhered to while drafting your formal letter. What are these conventions? So the formal letter, you need to have the address of the sender, you need your date, name of the addressee, address of the addressee, your salutation, subject, introduction, body, conclusion, closing, name of the sender. Yes, I know. It's a lot simpler when you're just sending a WhatsApp message to someone and you're very brief. And this may seem very long and elaborate, but again, we are stressing, it is for a formal purpose. So what is all of this and where do they fit into the general structure of your formal letter? So let's take a look. So we're looking at a formal letter, and we want to start at the beginning with the sender's address. So we have our sender's address here. This is the person sending the letter. The person who's sending the letter, you want to have their address, and again, the examiners want to be able to know that you understand where this should go and what it should comprise of. So we're using this, and it's placed at the top of our letter, top of our paper, top of our page, and we're using the full block style. So it's at the top left-hand corner. We have the sender, the address, and here we have number 12 Fake Street, Made Up Avenue, Somewhere Gardens. You can choose to make up an address. I would advise you not to use your actual address, especially for the purposes of the exam. You can reconstruct and change and make up something, but let it be believable. Then you want to skip a line, and we have that space here. You're skipping a line and give us the date. Again, the skipping of the line, and we learned this in primary school. We skip a line so that we have that appearance of clarity. There's better organization. The last thing you want to do is have your information disregarded because of poor organization. Nobody wants to be able to, no one wants to sit and read something that is so clustered that it makes it hard on your eyes. And you want to ensure that your letter gets read. After you've put the date, again, you're going to skip a line here. We're skipping a line here. And this is to present the recipient's name and address. So we have the sender above, and now we're talking about our recipient. We're going to have our recipient's name and address, and where you know the name of the person, you're advised to use the person's name here. So if it is Mr. Roger Shepard, Chief Personal Officer, Massey Enterprises, Robinson Street, Scarborough, Tobago. You put the name of the person, you put the office that they hold, the position, their portfolio, and then you put the address of their office. You are not sending this to their home address. So do not put a personal home address for your recipient, especially in the case of a formal letter. You want the address related to their office. After we've done that, again, we skip a line. We're skipping a line. Again, as we said, we want to have clarity. We want to make sure that there's really good organization in our letter so that whoever looks at it, it's not congested. We skip a line, and here we put the salutation. your greeting. In simpler terms, that is what your salutation is. It's the greeting. Dear sir, madam. Again, if you know the name of the person, if you address them in the recipient address, name and address, you can address them here in the greeting using their surname. Dear Mr. Shepherd, dear Mrs. Rodriguez, and you use the person's name in cases where you are aware of who they are. So you've done your salutation, which is your greeting, and right below, oh, and before I go there, there's a tendency that we are observing where the punctuation that takes place in the salutation is sometimes inaccurate. Some students we've observed that some students, after you've said dear sir or madam, I've seen students put a colon. We've seen colons. Right, let's do that here. Right. I've also seen semicolons, so we've had colons. I've seen semicolons. But what you're supposed to have here is a comma. And we have it here. Dear sir, madam, put a comma. No other punctuation goes right after that salutation but the comma. Then we get into the body of our letter. Now, this section, especially when we are doing the paper 2, this is in section 2 of paper 2. There is no stipulated word limit. As of this time, we've not seen any of the past papers or anything indicating a word limit for this section, especially because we've seen word limits for all of the other sections. But you do not want to give away marks. You also want to adhere to the suggested time. And the suggested time in this section is 30 minutes. So you know you're not going to write something that's going to take you 10 minutes. Additionally, you're not going to spend an hour on this exercise. What you want to do is have sufficient content that would provide you with the full amount of marks available to you. So we're looking at a structure, the body of the letter. Again, we want to think again about structure that we've used in other types of essays. We've spoken about the 5-paragraph essay. You want to be able to have at least 4 or 5 paragraphs when you write your informal letter. So what we have here, the first part of the body, and this body, this block, don't write it as one block. We need our paragraph structures. So you want the introduction with your main idea for writing. You should indicate why you're writing this letter. What is your purpose for writing this? Are you complaining about something? Are you requesting something? Are you asking for permission to do something? Are you apologizing? And there are different reasons to write formal letters, but in your introduction, that reason must be clearly stated. After you've indicated your reason for writing, you want to be able to explain the situation with necessary details. The situation that you explain, again, will depend on the purpose for writing the letter. But you want to be able to have that kind of content, that kind of structure, have a paragraph that explains the situation. Explain the situation and provide necessary details. You may have to make up some things, but again, you're engaged in a type of writing that is looking for your ability to express yourself given a specific prompt. So you want to make up information that would be relevant to the purpose you're writing. Then you want to go to paragraph 3. Suggest possible solutions. Don't let the letter just be about a complaint that this went wrong and you want them to fix it. Provide solutions. Make some suggestions. How can this be resolved? What can happen? Make recommendations. Request a resolution. Because again, you want content. You want a healthy letter. We don't want letters that look skinny and underweight, like I might look sometimes. But you want to have a healthy, robust, strong letter. So we want to put some meat on it. We want to feed that letter. And essentially, this is what I'm asking you to do. Feed your letter, but feed it with the right ingredients. Feed it with the right type of diet so that you get maximum benefits. Then you want to have contact details. This is the part of the letter that should indicate, should you require additional information, I can be reached at. And you want to put a phone contact, put an email address, some way that whoever is reading the letter can reach you. So you might want to put a phone number. You might want to have a phone number or include an email address. Your objective here is to ensure you can be reached, because it's not a very good idea to send a formal letter and you have no way of getting a response. So you have to ensure that you factor in there how this response can reach to you. And when you're finished, you want to have your complimentary close. This is how you end your letter. And please, for a formal letter, you don't just sign it with your first name. You don't just put a signature. Those are two things we want to bear in mind. You put your signature, you say sincerely or respectfully. Again, it's a formal letter, so you want to close it with a formal tone. And you put this signature. So if your signature is signature, put the signature, but ensure that you have in block, very clearly written, who sent this letter, put their name, as well as their designation, who this person is. Because we don't want a situation again, you've written the letter, Philip Edwards, and we don't know who you are. If you're writing on behalf of an organization or group or club, you want to be able to say who you are, and that strengthens the content of your letter because it says you are speaking on behalf of a particular group. If you are writing as a concerned citizen about a situation that's affecting you, sign your letter, Philip Edwards, concerned citizen, but indicate who you are. That is very important. Again, because a formal letter, the person you're writing to, they don't know you like your family and friends would know you. So you need to put all of the relevant information for clarity. Language use in our formal letters. There are certain things that we have to avoid because we want to make sure that the letter comes across with a formal tone. We want to avoid contractions. Contractions such as you've been instructed to go ahead with the project. You want to write that out in its entirety. You have. We want to avoid they've been asked to rewrite the proposal. We're going to write it out in its entirety. They plus have. They have. We want to avoid structures such as I'm. In fact, what it is we've observed even with I'm, I apostrophe M, that really should be I am. What I'm has become, this has actually become this. Many people are writing and in their speed, in their haste, they've thrown out the I altogether. And now they're just using the am. And again, it's because of habit. Habitual use of this particular contraction has resulted in it changing into something that is not related to what it should be. You want to have I am when you're writing formally, so we avoid the contractions. Additionally, we want to avoid informal abbreviations. Informal abbreviations, you're not going to ask for more info. We have to write out the entire word, more information. Informal abbreviations such as info or we'll take info. While we are saying avoid informal abbreviations, there are formal abbreviations that are acceptable for formal purposes. We know that if we are talking about the Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Company, we will say T and Tech. This is an example of a formal abbreviation. We will talk about WASA. It's an example of a formal abbreviation. UNICEF, UNESCO, WHO, World Health Organization. These are examples of formal abbreviations. What we want to avoid would be the informal ones. Then we want to avoid set phrases and idioms. Don't worry about the proposal. It's a piece of cake. It's a piece of cake is an example of an idiom. We want to avoid that. He's a pain in the neck. We want to avoid those idioms. You want to be able to be very clear and very articulate in what it is you're writing. You also want to avoid omitting words. This has become so commonplace in our language today that if someone writes, "see you soon," it seems okay. But it's actually omitting the pronoun. It's omitting the rest of it, which should be, "I will see you soon." I will or we will see you soon. It's omitting some of the words. And we want to put in everything that should be there because, again, and we keep stressing, this is a formal letter. So let's take a look at some types of formal letters. Formal letters can take various forms. We have the letter of complaint, job application, references, recommendations, resignations, thank yous, letters of interest. All of these are types of formal letters. We want to look at a little more closely at the letter of complaint. What is it? A complaint letter is a type of letter written to address any type of wrongdoing, offense, grievance, resentment arising out of a product or service. Simply put, this means if you've purchased something from a company, and we're not calling the names of any company, but if you've purchased something, you've ordered something, and after you've gotten home, you realize you've paid your money, you've gotten the product, and something is wrong with it, you're not going to go and throw stones at the company's building, at their windows. You're not going to go in there and curse out the general manager or the supervisor. What you do is write a letter of complaint, something that's well organized, something that's structured and articulate, outlining what your grievance is. Similarly, it can be for a service. You've gone to a restaurant, or you've gone to a hotel, you've gone to some place where there's a service being provided, the gas station, a supermarket, and you felt as if there was a problem with the kind of service you received, the quality of the service. Again, don't make noise and throw things and start to curse and carry on. Write a formal letter of complaint articulating what the offense or grievance is. Our letter of complaint is used to raise your concern about unfair things and seek a productive outcome. And it is a fundamental right and duty of a citizen to seek justice arising out of any injustice. And the first step towards it is filing a complaint. I just want to touch on this part here. It is a fundamental right and duty of a citizen. You have the right to complain if you've received something that was not what you requested or what you asked for. What we have to ensure is that we complain properly. Simply put, it is your right, but within your right, do it right. It inspires other troubled consumers, influences the concerned authorities to take proper action, and it makes the defaulters more liable, responsible, and responsive. When you make a formal complaint, chances are there may be other persons who realize they experience a similar situation. They may not have said anything about it, but your properly articulated complaint will inspire them. It may encourage them to say, well, I had a similar situation. This is going to create awareness, and you're going to find that the authorities would be able to take proper action, especially if they recognize that this was not a one-off situation. Formal letters of complaint are important because when companies, when organizations are made aware of dissatisfaction, especially, and I'll keep stressing it, clearly articulated dissatisfaction from their consumers, they are now in a position to be more reliable, more responsible, more responsive, and in some cases they can be liable, which means they may have to reimburse or pay the customer, pay the consumer for any discomfort they may have experienced as a result of the product or service. So we have a responsibility to do things in the proper way so that change can take place.